Hi, everyone. So before I start, where's everybody's battery at tonight? If you were to think of an iPhone fully charged, anybody here fully charged? Okay. Who's on 80%, 50%, 30? Okay. 75, we'll go there. Okay, 60. Okay. What about we're in the red zone? Okay, I get it. I get it. So, first of all, I just want to thank everybody for being here. I also want to start off by just introducing myself. Like Sarah had mentioned, my name's Sarah Saunders. I am human first, therapist second. I want to share the very human part of me throughout this presentation. So, in order to do that, and the stories I'm going to be telling, lock in these faces over here. So, I am married to my husband, Justin. We've been together for 11 years, married for 8. I'm also the mother to Beckham. He is 7. Anderson, he is 6. Tristan is 4. He has autism. And then my 2-year-old Noah is 2 going on 12. I am a licensed professional clinical counselor. I have been in the field for over a decade. I also own a mental health private practice, which is called Purposeful Growth and Wellness. I will share more about the practice towards the end. But I am multi-passionate. I wear a lot of hats, like I know many of you do. I am, like I had mentioned, a therapist. I'm a researcher. I'm a speaker. And I am so unbelievably passionate about what I do. And you'll see me, I'm also Italian, so you'll see me using my hands a lot during this presentation. My path here. So one of my favorite quotes is, you wait 9 months to meet someone new. You think it's your baby, and it's actually you. How many of you can resonate or even, use this with fatherhood? Who can resonate to this? So I always wanted to be a mom, and I grew up knowing, I babysat all the time. I played with my dolls. Being a mother was exactly what my path was. However, what nobody talks about is how much easier it is to raise your hypothetical children than your actual real life children. And so throughout my journey of motherhood, it's always been a passion of mine, and I've also had a need to want to also have a part of me. I didn't want to lose myself in motherhood. I also feel that I have been gifted with these 4 beautiful children as an opportunity to share our story, to be able to then plant seeds with those I work with. So, you follow the plan, right? You get married. Some, may not get married, but you have a child. And when you have a child, there is a rebirthing that happens of yourself. And during this process, and I want to be very clear, the things that I'm going to talk to you about are not things that I am perfect at. No matter the amount of education that I have, the research that I've done, I am continuing to learn more about myself and learn about my children. And some things that work for some of my kids don't work for other ones. And so motherhood became an opportunity for me to put on this lens of curiosity, questioning things, trying to find myself in the midst of motherhood. And so I did research and more research, and I started doing the deeper work. And the things that I'm going to share with you today, and I want you to know that I am still, although I do have and supervise a team, I am still in the field, that I am seeing clients day in and day out. I do individual work, I do couples work, family therapy. And so I not only live this in my own life, but I see this in the work that I do. And the things that I'm going to be sharing with you, I would not share if I didn't know firsthand that these things are imperative. So I just want to acknowledge how glad I am that you're here. I want you to really give yourself a pat on the back and to recognize that you are truly part of a global movement, reimagining the way that we raise our kids and the way we connect to ourselves. And so thank you for being here. My hope for our time together is first and foremost to recognize that you are human beings. We are not human doings, we are humans. And so we are learning and evolving and growing, and we need to embrace a mindset of curiosity and openness. I just hope that you can listen well while giving yourself grace throughout our time. My true hope is that I am here to plant a seed, but that these conversations go beyond just tonight. And ultimately, as well, I just want you to feel supported and feel a sense of connection. And so, connecting for kids, right? This is part of this community. Our goal is to raise humans, not robots. Switching our parenting from consequences to connection. I'm going to share with you my approach. And the one thing that I want to emphasize is that your child doesn't need to be fixed, rescued, or saved, and neither do you. And so my approach and the lens in which that I work from is connection over correction. I also come from a systemic perspective, meaning that I look at the whole family system. And so I want you to remember throughout our time together that your history explains you, but it doesn't define you. Your life is like a book. There are so many chapters that have gotten you to where you are now. Some of those chapters have dust on them, and we don't want to go there. However, each and every thing that has happened to us has gotten us exactly where we are today. The beautiful thing is that the pen is in your hand and you get to decide what these next chapters look like. Some of these pages are absolutely out of our control. Things that we never would have anticipated happens. But I also want us to feel a sense of control with all of these uncontrollables. I also want us to own and honor our experiences. Sometimes the hardest mom moments truly become this badge of honor that it's like, wow, I made it through. All of you have made it 100% through your hardest days. I also want to acknowledge generational trauma. Going back to our history explains us, but it doesn't define us. There is capital T trauma, things that we have physically been through. People talk a lot about the capital T traumas, not enough about the lowercase t traumas. And that's what I want us to talk about tonight, is recognizing that those lowercase t traumas are actually not things that have happened to us, but happen within us. And so when we have a child with special needs, when we have these mom rage moments, dad rage moments, these just extreme moments of overwhelm, overstimulation, and frustration, it internally dysregulates our nervous system. I promise I'm not going to get too nerdy, but I am going to nerd out a little bit and share with you how the brain responds to these types of things. But it's important to just acknowledge these things. And as humans, we all want to do well, right? Does anyone in here just not want to do well? Okay, you wouldn't be here if you didn't want to do well. If we're not doing well, what skills are we lacking? Here's some statistics I want to share with you. So 30% of parents report feeling unprepared to manage their child's emotional or behavioral issues due to their own experience with similar challenges. 35% of parents have attended parenting classes and may still feel ill-equipped to handle their children's struggles. I am proof of this, that even with all of my background, my education, I still find myself feeling ill-equipped to handle the things that cognitively, logically, I know I should be doing, and so it's hard. 45% of parents who struggle with emotional regulation feel ill-equipped to teach these skills to their children. 50% of parents of children with special needs feel overwhelmed and lack the necessary skills to provide effective support. 55% of parents who identify with their child's mental health challenges feel ineffective or inadequate in their parenting roles. 60% of parents with their own mental health challenges experience high levels of parenting stress, hindering their connection with their child. Just some open feedback. What is it like to see these statistics? Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is where the grace comes in, to recognize that you guys are not alone and that there is this epidemic of struggle. And I am here to help support you in finding ways to support yourself during these types of situations. So, this is where I'm going to get a little nerdy, but just stay with me. So, what is important to understand is the brain and the body connection. So, when we are heightened, when we are overstimulated, when we are overwhelmed, or when we are triggered, it activates our amygdala, which is a part of the brain that actually is like a check engine light, like emergency is going on. So, when our amygdala is activated, it actually then activates our hippocampus, which is the back of our brain by our brainstem, that actually holds all of our thoughts and feelings. So just keep in mind that an emergency is happening. It then activates this part of our brain that acts like a magnet, that all of these past experiences, all of these feelings, when we have felt this trigger, it's like a glitter storm. Like if you took a glitter jar and you shook it up, we're in the middle of an emergency, there's like a glitter storm happening, and then hang tight because it gets better. So then it shuts down our prefrontal cortex, which is the executive functioning part of our brain. That's our reasoning, our rationale, all of those skills, all of those tools that we have worked so hard to learn, we're blacked out. So, right? Yeah. So again, like emergencies happening, our thoughts and our feelings are swirling around in our head, and we are completely blacked out. So then what happens is then our nervous system gets dysregulated. And I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the nervous system. It's my favorite part of the body to talk about besides the brain. So if you want to chat about it after this, I'm here for it. So our nervous system, we go into fight, flight, freeze, or research has coined about a decade ago, the fawn state, which is a people-pleasing tendency. What is so important to recognize is that in these zones, the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, they've served us at one point in our life. They were a protective mechanism. However, they are not welcome in this situation. That our body is trying to protect us from something during this emergency. And so we are blacked out. We're the stress activation, our impact on our hippocampus, our prefrontal cortex is shut down. We're on cognitive overload. And the biggest importance and why I bring this up is because we have to rewire and reprogram our nervous system so that we can create connection and present moments with our kids during these very real triggering moments. Does this make sense to everybody? So, are your needs being met? Check engine light. The dysfunction or disconnection with your child has very little to do with your child and more to do with yourself. Ouch, right? Like that's a hard truth. So I cannot tell you how more often than not I find myself, and I use the word overstimulated because I feel that a lot. Anyone else with me? So there was like a meme going around, and I sent it to my husband, and it said something along the lines of, "I'm so sorry for what I said when the counters were cluttered," right? So it's important to recognize that when our amygdala is going off, when we are activated, it really oftentimes has nothing to do with that specific situation. It's what's underneath the surface. And so before the mom rage happens, before I lose my marbles, what our kids don't always see is that invisible mental load that we're carrying. The shame and the guilt and the stress and the to-do list, right? There's so much underneath. However, as parents, we do have to acknowledge those things, and we have to take agency and ownership over that so that we can be for our children what they need in that moment. And so, understanding and unpacking our reaction, parents often focus on their kids during challenging situations, but if you really want, which I know you all do, if you really want to help your kids, the single most important parenting question you can ask yourself is, what does this situation bring up for me? And this is a really important question to really bring your awareness to, that in that moment, being able to recognize, okay, when I think of the words that came out of my mouth or what was happening to me, are you tired? Are you hungry? When was the last time that you got fresh air? How much caffeine had you had today? Right? Like, when was the last time you connected with your partner? When was the last time you took a shower and weren't worried about your child eloping, or you were on a time crunch? And then also, when your child is behaving in that way, more times than not, we get triggered because what we needed when we were their age, we didn't get that. And that's where I want to talk about reparenting. Has anybody heard this term before? Where have you heard it? Online. So Dr. Becky Kennedy, and I cannot verify if she is the one that coined this word. However, she talks about reparenting a lot. I have references at the end that I'll share. She has a book called Good Inside. But reparenting is so important as we are finding ways to support ourselves during these moments. And so we cannot give others what we have not learned to provide for ourselves. That's why giving yourself what you needed and never received as a child is one of the most important things you can do for yourself and your relationship. Going back to this question, what does this situation bring up for me? I often ask clients in session, how old do you feel in this moment? Because more times than not, again, when our amygdala is going off, we're blacked out, our nervous system is completely dysregulated. I don't know about you guys, but I don't feel like a 35-year-old adult. I feel like a child. Can anyone else relate to that? And so I want to talk about self-compassion. And self-compassion is the key to not only supporting our children, but also to sustain ourselves through ups and downs of parenting. So Kristen Neff, she is the guru, kind of the Oprah in the self-compassion space. And so in these moments, it's important to recognize when you're feeling triggered, when you're feeling activated, showing up for yourself in that moment, mothering the mother, fathering the father. And so some of the practical tools for managing these struggles, and what I think is important for us to talk about, is breathing. And so when we are focused on our breath, it actually helps. If we can focus on our breathing, it actually helps to open up that prefrontal cortex If you think of like a thermometer, the more heightened our emotional temperature is, the hotter we are, and the more that you can breathe, it actually starts to regulate your nervous system, open up your prefrontal cortex, which then allows you to access or come back to yourself, right? Access those skills. And so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 breathing is a strategy that I like to share with parents for a number of reasons. So first and foremost, we all have a hand, right? I love strategies that are like connected to your body because you can take them anywhere. And so when you think of your hand, you have 5 fingers, you also have 5 senses. You can taste, smell, see, hear, and touch. And so the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 breathing, there's multiple ways that you can do this. And the thing that I love the most about this is that you can do it with your child. And so if you are feeling completely dysregulated, you are activated, you can breathe. And so being able to close your eyes, you can even trace your hand. You have 5 fingers, you can trace those, count backwards from 5. You can also do this with your child. One of the things that I love to do with Tristan, he loves good sensory input. And so when he's dysregulated, we do a lot of like squeezes, deep pressure contact. And he also loves when I take my hand and I put his hand over it. And we put that on, he puts it on my chest, I put it on his chest. So again, thinking of the 5 fingers and we count. We can count forwards, we can count backwards. The other thing is if you think of those 5 fingers and those 5 senses, you can say and you can do, what do I see? What in the room do I see? What do I smell? What do I taste? What can I feel? What do I hear? And so again, this is a mindfulness activity that also allows us to feel grounded. Balloon breathing. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So, one, what a moment to celebrate. I love that that happened for you today. We know that these kids are wild cards. And so, this is great that it worked today. You may try and do this tomorrow and it doesn't work, right? But this is where it is doing that research, it's doing your research. What I will say is talking to your kids and your spouses. My husband and I, it's actually funny because he loves like a very gentle kind of like, scratches. If you were to do that to me, like the feisty Italian will come out, where I like the very deep pressure. And so doing some experimenting with your child, and again, thinking of this 5, like think of using your hand. Because in these moments when we are dysregulated, and I will get to verbal things that we can do, but we don't want to be talking because that's just adding to, we're going to get frustrated because we don't think that they're listening, but also just as we're blacked out, so are they. And so we want to bring our bodies to a place of regulation so then we can problem solve. And so to your point, being able to kind of, when your child is regulated, maybe you're laying in bed, ask them questions. Do you, when I rub your arm like this, like give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Do you like this? Do you not? Show me what you do like. And to understand those types of things and do it, practice it when you're in a regulated state so that it doesn't just feel like you're doing that when shit's hitting the fan, right? The other thing with, thinking of, the number 5 is also remembering that children, I mean, we go till age 12, here with some of this, but sometimes what helps me get back into the moment is because I sometimes have this narrative in my head that I expect my kids to do things that really their age developmentally, it's not appropriate for them. And so by looking at their tiny little hand, sometimes it does just bring you back to recognize, wow. And I joke, and my mother is here, by the way, and so she can, the calls that I, make to her, and I'm literally snot bubbling, like mascara running down my eyes, like just beside myself. And I joke, because with, little Noah, my 2-year-old, who's like 2 going on 12, I'm like, why am I arguing with a kid that can't even tie his shoes? Like, what is happening, right? But yet they get the best of us, and then they get our leftovers, not our entree. And so this is an opportunity to just recognize that precious hand. Man, that strong will, that feistiness, it will serve you one day. And you're the reason I have to color my hair right now, right? And so this is, use your hands, use them in a gentle way, and bring in the reparenting with this. Being able to give yourself a hand hug, being able to give yourself the support that you need in that moment. Again, if anyone wants to talk about this at a later date, I am here for it. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is the longest nerve in our body that runs from our brainstem to our abdomen. And the reason I am so passionate about this specific nerve is because it directly impacts our parasympathetic nervous system. And so when our nervous system is dysregulated, this nerve actually helps, if it's stimulated, to calm that part, to regulate that part of our body. And so I want each of you, for a moment, I just want you to move your neck, like back and forth, just very slowly. Just keep your eyes open, don't get dizzy, but just look around the room and really use that full range of motion. Back and forth, back and forth. And then do some experimenting, like maybe, move your neck in circles, up and down. I'm seeing posture change in like the most beautiful way, not to be creepy, but I'm like looking and like I'm seeing people's shoulders just like dropping. I'm seeing people really get into this movement. What is this like for you guys? What was that? Reorienting. Love that word. Yeah. What's it like for you? Does it feel good? Is it uncomfortable? Feels good. Yeah. Did anybody not like that? Raise of hands who liked it. Raise of hands how I do this daily. No hands. So again, love when strategies are body parts because they're with us always. So some really interesting things about this is, one, going back to our vagus nerve and our nervous system, our neck and that type of movement actually helps to stimulate that vagus nerve, allowing for it to help create some of the chemicals in our body to make us feel that rest and relaxation state. And so this is a beautiful invitation that when you are feeling activated, you can use those beautiful hands of yours. You can massage your neck. You can even just move your neck back and forth. And it is actually a coping mechanism that you can then model to your children that you benefit from as well. The other really interesting part of this, and I use the language of bracing for impact, because let's be honest, as a mom of 4, 2 with very challenging needs, I'm constantly bracing. And so I'm constantly being proactive, thinking about what are all the things that I have to do just in case. Sarah and I could probably have a really fun conversation about all the hypothetical situations that could potentially happen. And then I have to get all of the things together. And then while we're in the moment, I can't even be present because I'm just thinking about this isn't going to last. And I just have to brace, right? And so I want you to know, parents, I see you and I appreciate your proactiveness. And we are constantly looking forward, and it creates blinders. And so sometimes we have to give ourselves grace and to just recognize, thank you for being proactive. And I want you to look around. I want you to see the bigger picture. I want you to take some of that pressure off of yourself, reminding yourself two things are true. This is really hard work, and I want to be present for the good moments too. So, the other breathing exercise that's really fun to do, I'm going to fly through these, but I do have resources that I can, and I'm happy to talk to anyone after, is balloon breathing. So, literally, like blowing up a balloon, and then you and your child can have a lot of fun, like popping it and, deflating in different ways. It can be a really good body exercise. Mindfulness exercises, we actually just did one with like the moving our neck, a good body scan being, I like to use the language of pay attention to the tension and tend to it. So pay attention to where you feel the tension in your body and tend to that. Guided imagery is also something, thinking about, a beautiful place you've been. I love water. And so really you can go through a lot of different ways to guide yourself and your child through those things. One of the other big pieces is to keep in mind, how can we support our child without absorbing their struggle? How can we kind of make sure that when they're struggling, it's not consuming us? And so there is a method, the stop method. So stop, take a breath. We know different ways to breathe, observe your feelings, and then proceed. Mantras, love a good mantra. So write down a self-compassionate statement to use in those moments of struggle. I love the power of and both. And so I am doing the best I can, and my child is having a hard time, not giving me a hard time. Some simple mantras is, I'm a good mom, I'm a good dad, I'm a present parent. Time out together. So communicate heightened emotional state, model space, and end on a positive note. So one thing that you can do in these moments is to just verbalize, almost become a commentary. I'm feeling really upset. Own your feeling. It's not because of them. Yes, we get triggered by them, but it's not their fault. I'm feeling really frustrated. I need to take a break. And the positive note is, we don't ever want a child to feel abandoned or like they're too much. And so to say, I'm having a hard time, I'm going to take a step back. You are more than welcome to do the same thing. I know we have to make sure our kids are safe, but then also, I can't wait to give you a hug when we're calm, right? Like being able to tell them I will be right back, providing them with that, supportive language and not leaving it too unknown. If you leave this presentation and you take nothing else away, I want you to remember this. It is about the repair and the reconnection after the rupture. Many of us, and I will say I have done a lot of research on previous parenting books and research that generations before us were given, they were not taught to say sorry. They were not taught to do the repair and the reconnection. There were lots of ruptures, and then there was a lot of brushing things under the rug. There were a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms. And so what is so important is to recognize we are human beings. We talked about this. We have a heartbeat. We are not robots, and neither are your children. we are going to have big feelings. Things are going to be big because it feels big, because it is big. And so when you have those very real human reactions, we need to focus on the repair and the reconnection with our child and with ourselves. We need to be able to forgive ourselves in those moments and ask for forgiveness, talk to our child about those things when we're regulated, after you did all of your strategies. So some examples: I'm sorry. I'm sure that felt scary. I'm working on staying calm when I have big feelings. I love you. I'm thinking about how I reacted when you were on your iPad earlier. I would love to work on finding ways to talk more calmly to one another. Man, I keep thinking about what happened between you and your brother yesterday. I was so short with you. I feel like I didn't hear your side of the story. My brain is thinking that must have been super frustrating for you. I want to let you know I'm going to try and be more patient and hear what you say. And so here are some resources that I want you to remember. We need to embrace our imperfections, and we need to offer compassion to ourselves. Our shared struggles are also our shared growth. And so here are some books. And again, I am happy to share this presentation if anybody wants it. If you leave your email in the back, and I can give you more resources. I do want to make a quick plug for Sarah, that so the middle book, The Whole Brain Child by Dan Siegel, which is amazing, and Tina Payne Bryson, October 26th at 1, Connecting for Kids is actually doing a Whole Brain Child book club. And so we're in a library, which is great. So you can get the book. Connecting for Kids also has copies of the book. They're here at the library. Perfect. And then Libby Library, I don't know if anyone's familiar, but it is like an app on your phone that you can get free books. But these are wonderful books to kind of help support you during this process. Vulnerability, I'm going to go so quick. So children learn most from how parents handle their own emotions. When you share your struggles with them and model vulnerability, you provide tools to navigate their own difficulties with compassion and emotional intelligence. So research shows, and Brene Brown, she is like the Oprah in the psychology world, and she has a whole book, which I did reference, on vulnerability. And research shows that vulnerability creates connection, and it breaks down barriers of isolation. I say this for two reasons. One, the more vulnerable and honest you are with your kids at an age-appropriate level, the more that then they are going to mirror that back to you. You are going to be a safe place for them, a soft landing instead of a hard place to fall.